Notre Dame fans, welcome to a special edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast YouTube edition, and we are going to talk about Notre Dame scheduling the Florida Gators. I'm actually excited about this matchup, but I can't help but get a chuckle because the games are scheduled for 2031 and 2032. Florida will travel to South Bend to play a game on November 15th, 2031. Let me begin by saying I love the fact that Notre Dame got Florida to agree to come up to South Bend in the middle of November. I think that's going to be great. What's going to be interesting is obviously that's going to be late in the season. Notre Dame is going to have to go on the road. So who knows what the schedule is going to look like then or what teams are going to look like. But I thought that was interesting. And then the next year, Notre Dame makes their first ever trip to Florida to play in the Swamp. That game will be on September 11th, 2032. When you look at the schedules over the next decade, Notre Dame is now going to play Clemson several times, obviously, because that's going to be part of the ACC deal. Notre Dame is going to play Florida State several times between now and then, which is part of the ACC deal. Notre Dame is also going to play 2 games against Ohio State, 2 games against Texas A&M, 2 games against Alabama, and now 2 games against Florida, and all home and home. So none of this neutral field stuff that Alabama and Florida like to do when they play road games, especially Alabama. These will be true home and homes. At least that's where they are right now. What's interesting is, my overall general feel is I don't like these scheduling games a decade out. It's just you have no clue how teams are going to progress. You have no clue what kind of schedule that you're putting on your coach's shoulders. You look at the schedule in 2031. Right now, Notre Dame already has 6 teams scheduled in 2031. 5 of them are ACC teams, and then you've got Florida, plus you're going to have USC and Navy, so that's at least 8 games. Who knows, what they'll be doing with Stanford at the time. That's a series I actually wouldn't mind kind of seeing go by the wayside. But you look at 2031, Notre Dame at home plays Florida, Miami, NC State, and then on the road, they play Clemson, North Carolina, and Virginia. You look at that now, you're like, plus they got to play USC and Navy. You think, well, that's a tough schedule, but we have no clue what these teams are going to look like by then. The 2032 schedule is interesting because Notre Dame not only plays Florida, but look at this. They play Florida State at home, they play Miami on the road, and Florida on the road. That means Notre Dame is going to play all 3 of the Florida big boy programs in 2032. Now, is that going to be tough? Is that going to be easy? I have no idea. I don't even know who the head coaches are going to be for those teams in 10 years, but if history teaches us anything, at least 2 of those teams are going to be at least good. One of them could potentially be great. So that's certainly a very challenging schedule if things continue the way that they have. Those are good football teams. Plus, you're going to have, like I said, USC and Navy on the schedule. So it's very interesting, this scheduling strategy that Notre Dame has, scheduling these games way out in advance. But it did feel like the Texas A&M game was way far away when it got scheduled, and now we're 3 years away from that series taking place. They play Alabama in 28-29, and then, of course, now Florida in 2031 and 2032. So, I like I said, I don't love this. I just think that when you're trying to talk about building a schedule that is challenging enough to where you can hold to the Notre Dame tradition of playing top teams, but also not so daunting that you're playing 6 or 7 top 15 teams, or so soft that you're not really playing good enough teams to really contend for a playoff spot unless you go undefeated, which has happened to Notre Dame a couple of times. To me, it feels like it's way too early, too much, especially now that you already have into the 2037. You basically already have 7 games scheduled every year with the 5 ACC games plus USC plus Navy. If Notre Dame re-ups with Stanford after, I think, their series comes up here in the next couple of years, if they re-up with Stanford for any period of time, that's going to make it even more challenging to really find those spots. But again, you have no clue what kind of schedule you're putting on the shoulders of your coaches. So I don't love it. I think 4 or 5 years in advance is about as far out as you want to go, but this is just the nature of it. Teams are locking in their schedules. There's locking in these contracts or locking in these paydays way in advance. And that's just the way of college football. It's one of those things that's just, it's happening. There's nothing we can do about it. Don't have to like it, but this is what they're doing. But I do think this is a series, however, that I am excited about. And kudos for Florida for scheduling it. I don't think Florida's played above the Mason-Dixon line maybe ever, but it's definitely been 40, 50 years. And they definitely don't schedule these kind of home and homes with programs from up north. So very curious to see how this goes over the next decade. I mean, we don't even know who the head coaches are going to be. I mean, there's just so many things that you really have to think about. I mean, if you really think about like the freshman class for that 2031 team, right now those guys are what, middle school, right? Elementary school. So it's really just a wild situation. But this is a cool series. I'm excited to see this series happen. It's going to be a while, and hopefully these teams will square off between now and then. Remember, the only time Notre Dame and Florida have ever played was on January 1st of 1992 in the Sugar Bowl, the Cheerios Bowl, a game that Notre Dame won 39-28. So look, in the comments section below, let me know what you think of this series, and let me know what you think of these teams scheduling these games way out in advance. Is this something you like? Is this something to kind of look forward to? Do you think it's too early? Do you think it's too far away? Let me know in the comments section after, of course, you subscribe to our YouTube channel. So that'll be it. We'll be back with you again later today. We're going to talk about Tommy Rees. We're going to talk in the next couple of days about the recruiting needs for Notre Dame in 2022. We're going to give you some early names to know for recruits in 2022. So make sure you stay locked into the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our podcast. And check out our website at irishbreakdown.com.